When you're on the clock for your Dynasty rookie draft, you're sitting there trying to decide who you should take. Well, maybe the option shouldn't just be who should I take, but should I even use this pick to draft a player at all? And that's what we're going to get into today. We're going to look at players that you should be considering trading for and whether or not that's actually a good deal. So we're going to give you a player and a rookie that have a similar ADP right now and tell you which direction we think you should go in your rookie draft. So let's start off at the top. The biggest name in the rookie class right now, Ashton Jeanty. Should you go with Ashton Jeanty or somebody offers you Breece Hall straight up? What direction should you go? Right now, for me, I lean Ashton Jeanty. Right now in this class, there would be nobody that I would trade straight up for him unless it was Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs. Any other running back, I would probably be saying no to. And Breece Hall is the third guy for a lot of people. Sometimes it's Devon Achane as well, maybe Saquon Barkley. But we're going to go specifically with Breece Hall in this situation here. The thing that I struggle with on Breece Hall is, we saw that this offensive line is not what we hoped it would be. This past season, Breece Hall had a down season, and people are expecting him to take a tick back up. I'm not quite so sure that that's going to happen. And one of the biggest reasons is that offensive line. But the other one is the switch at quarterback. I like Justin Fields. I think he's actually going to be a pretty good fantasy asset and not necessarily a bad thing for a guy like Garret Wilson, who we saw a big year with DJ Moore when he had Justin Fields. But that's beside the point. The thing that I'm worried about is the year where we saw Breece Hall all the way up at running back 2 on the season. He had a 26.5% target share, at least the running back position did in that season. That was the second best in the whole NFL class that year. Problem is, with Justin Fields, that's not something we expect to see out of him. His highest target share for the running backs in his career was around 22%. And most seasons, he was way down by a lot, down to around 17%. So if that's the case, if Breece Hall is going to be getting only somewhere between 17 and a 22% target share, that's not spelling great news for his fantasy prospects going forward. Yes, Ashton Jeanty, any rookie is risky when we don't know the draft landing spot yet. We will likely by the time that you have to make this deal, but if I had to make it ahead of time, I would still do it. This is a player that we expect to get top 15 draft capital to a team that's going to use him a ton. And if that's the case, I fully expect Ashton Jeanty to be putting up similar receiving numbers and better rushing numbers than we get out of a guy like Breece Hall. On top of that, we get a few years younger as well, which is huge in Dynasty fantasy football. So go ahead and give me Ashton Jeanty. Next up, we're going to take a look at Drake London versus Tet McMillan. Now, this is one that I've been hearing a lot, partly because he's being comped a lot to a Drake London, that is Tet McMillan. Mike Evans, even hearing that he could be better than a lot of those players. This one's really pretty easy for me. This is Drake London by a landslide. And part of this is watching the tape. Tet McMillan overall, I think, is a good prospect. I think he's got a lot of upside. But if I were to compare him, let's say he's the number 1 receiver in the class. If I were to compare him to the other number 1 receivers over the past 6 classes, his tape score was actually the lowest out of all of the number 1 guys. So for me, I don't think he necessarily has the crazy ceiling that other people think he has. I'm really worried about his releases off the line. They're not very good. He's not as physical there as you would expect a guy of his size to be. And he doesn't separate crazy well. Now, he has a bonkers catch radius, and he's really good ball skills wise. So that could spell good success for him in the future. But when there's better corners on him, look at the game where Travis Hunter played him, 3 receptions for 15 yards. NFL DBs are getting taller. They're getting longer. And just winning constantly on contested catches isn't going to quite get it done as much at the next level. We see Drake London. Drake London had his breakout season last year, and he was already a younger player in his class. So the gap at receiver isn't as big. Plus, the longevity there is a lot better than it is typically at the running back position. So gaining a year or two at wide receiver isn't the biggest of deals. I like Drake London. I like what I saw between him and Michael Penix last year. They had a very nice connection, and I think this trend continues. So right now, a guy that I already see as a top 10, top 12 type fantasy wide receiver, I think that is Tet's absolute ceiling. Why not just take a guy that is already there? So I'm going to lean toward Drake London between these two. Next up, we have Omarion Hampton versus Kenneth Walker. These two are close. This was a really tricky one for me overall, looking at both of these players. On one hand, you have Omarion Hampton. The guy single-handedly carried his team last year, and despite there being almost no passing threat, dude still put up over 1,500 yards, had the fourth most missed tackles in this running back class, and is built to be a true workhorse at the next level. We're expecting this guy to probably get round one draft capital. We're looking at some teams in the early to mid 20s as potential landing spots for a guy like Hampton. There's a lot to like there. On the other hand, Kenneth Walker, we just got done hearing his offensive coordinator just absolutely gush over his talent and his ability. We know his upside. He's got crazy high upside. And in this new offense that could be featuring him more than what we saw last year, there could be some really good things ahead. So going back and forth, there was really one thing that ended up making the deciding factor between these two players for me, and that's Kenneth Walker's health. What we've seen year in and year out is a lot of dinged up games, a lot of missed time, and even games where he's healthy. Is he fully good to go? We saw that yards per carry drop quite a bit last season. And although it's going to be a new rushing scheme and he's going to be used a lot, I'm still going to go with who I think was the better overall running back and prospect. Kenneth Walker was a good player, second-round draft pick. I do think Omarion Hampton's a first-round player. I have a higher prospect score for him than I did out of a Kenneth Walker, and I just think he's a little bit better of a running back. So once again, with running back, years makes a big difference as well. When you get a little bit younger at the running back position, even if you expect a hair of a dip in production, getting those extra years is huge when running backs only have maybe a 6-year, 7-year lifespan typically for the good ones. For the good ones. The other guys have 2, 3, 4 years. For the good ones, you get 6 to 7 years out of those kind of guys as far as really good production. So I would rather go the route of Omarion Hampton, get a little bit younger, and I think the slightly better player. Let's move to quarterback Cam Ward versus Baker Mayfield. This is the biggest gap as far as age goes for any of these players. A lot of the players we kept it fairly close in age, but this is a pretty big gap in age. So when dynasty managers are on the clock trying to decide between Cam Ward or maybe trading for a Baker Mayfield, what direction should they go? Cam Ward, likely the number one overall pick by the Titans. We know this is an offense that had Joe Burrow in it a few years back when they were the offensive coordinator over in Cincinnati. We know that they can do some pretty good things. Cam Ward showed a lot on his tape, transferred a couple times, but when he landed in Miami, things really took off for him. He looked like the guy that has the strong arm, the good accuracy. There's a lot of things on tape that really, really intrigued me about a Cam Ward. On the flip side, we have Baker Mayfield. He is a little bit older, quite a bit older, actually, than what we have out of a guy like Cam Ward. But on the flip side, Baker Mayfield is coming off a year where he was actually the number 4 quarterback in fantasy football at 22.5 points per game. So for me, I'm going to take Baker. Even though the years scare me a little bit, we see fantasy football quarterbacks go into their late 30s, even into their 40s. So getting a player in Baker Mayfield that is a bit older at the position doesn't scare me off him because I know I'm still getting 6, 7, 8 years out of a guy like Baker Mayfield. In fantasy football, that's a really, really long time from now where, yes, Cam Ward, you get hopefully 15 years, but the unknown and going to a team that right now does not have a lot of weapons in the receiving game, and there's really not a lot to add via the draft this year. I do worry that it's just not an amazing spot for Cam Ward, whereas Baker Mayfield, we do know that he has that ceiling. If you were to tell me that Cam Ward next year was going to be quarterback 12 and the year after that, quarterback 7, like that would be amazing. But Baker Mayfield's already shown that he can be a top 5 guy in this offense. He did it this past year being the number 4 quarterback. He was the number 10 quarterback the season before, and he's bringing back all the same weapons. So overall, I get the temptation there, but I think this is one of those deals that absolutely could get done. And you might even get like extra on it. If you're at 1-3 and there's a team saying, I want Cam Ward, all right, give me Baker Mayfield plus your second round pick. I think something like that could be done. And I think that's a really savvy dynasty move. Last one here, we're going to be looking at Tyler Warren, the top tier tight end, versus TJ Hockenson, the vet from Minnesota. Woo, man, I mentioned Kenneth Walker and Omarion Hampton being tough for me. This one's really, really difficult as well. On one hand, you have Tyler Warren. He looks like a freak athlete, a guy coming out of Penn State who we know has had a history of putting out some pretty solid tight end prospects, some good players at the position. On the other side, you have TJ Hockenson, who's already proven that he can be a top tier NFL tight end and a fantasy tight end, but he is coming off of an injured season where he only played part of the year and looked a little underwhelming, and is going to have a new quarterback this year for the 3rd year in a row. So how do we weigh these two things? And guys, I went back and forth on this one a lot, but I leaned Tyler Warren. Here's why. It's another one where, yeah, we get some years, which is nice. Tight end, I don't worry about it as much because of how long they play. So that one wasn't as big of a factor as it is for like the running back position. I didn't care as much, but anytime you get that as a little nice bonus, I'll take that. I mentioned about the quarterback thing. That is something that does worry me. He's always going to be at least second fiddle in that offense, and at times, maybe even the third fiddle behind a Jordan Addison. We don't know what we're getting out of J.J. McCarthy. We expect him to be a good player. We expect him to be a good quarterback, but we just don't know for sure. We have not seen him play at the NFL level yet. And in college, he had an amazing running game that really kind of led the way for things there in Michigan. He's not going to have that here in the NFL. So not a red flag at all, because I do think he's going to be a good player, but it leaves enough of a doubt in my head to say it's not the safe veteran that maybe some of these other players that we were talking about. Tyler Warren has an elite ceiling. I've seen many people say that he is a top 10 prospect, period, in this draft class. So if a team is going to prioritize taking him that early, you know that he should be heavily involved in that offense, assuming it's not an Arthur Smith offense, but we don't need to get into that. But look what happened this past year with the Brock Bowers. We've seen guys before where early on that they are really pushed into this offense, used a lot fairly early, and with his athletic ability, looking at teams like maybe the Colts, the Jaguars, the Jets, the Saints, there's a lot of teams that could really use him, and he would instantly boost up to, if not the one, at least a heavily targeted number 2 option in those offenses. So I'm really, really intrigued with Tyler Warren, and I think he could have the opportunity to be a true difference maker at the position where at this point, even if you miss, is TJ Hockenson truly a difference maker at the position? No. And that's what we're looking for. We are looking for difference makers. Tight ends 4 through 10 are basically all the same guy. They're all going to be within 1.5 points of each other at the end of the season. I just don't know that TJ Hockenson is going to be that true difference maker, where at least I have the ceiling here of Tyler Warren to be a difference maker at the position. If you miss, oh, well, he's getting you 10.5 points a game to TJ Hawkinson's 11.5 points a game. Oh, darn. But if he hits, and he can put himself in that Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, what we saw to Kelsey for a long time. Like if he can put himself into one of those tiers, which he has the ceiling to do, now we just got ourselves a true difference maker at the position. And that's what we're really pursuing. So give me Tyler Warren at the position. Guys, let me know where you think I got it wrong. Let me know who you would take in these 5 scenarios of your rookie drafts.